Hi everyone, it's Tony from Blue Butterfly Creations, and today I'm going to show you how I made this adorable little elf card as part of my cards that I'm making this year, 2013. The image is actually from something that I randomly found searching Google Images. I do not know who originally designed it, but I searched digi-stamps or digital stamps and this came up, so I decided to use it. Thank you whoever drew it or created it. So to get started, I have a piece of white cardstock that is 8.5 by 5.5. I folded that in half to create a 4.25 by 5.5 card. I have a piece of Coordinations Asparagus colored cardstock from the Vintage Collection. This is cut at 5.5 by 4.25. I have a piece of this polka dotted Christmas paper I got from a stack a few years ago. This is cut at 4 by 5.25. I have this piece of pattern paper. Again, it came from the same stack as the dots. This is cut at, let me just double check, 3 by 4 5/8. And then I have this piece of cardstock here, which is again the asparagus. It is cut at 3 1/8 by 4 3/4. Then I have my digital image, and I didn't really have any particular sizing other than I made sure it was no wider than 2 inches. When it played out in my program, I used Microsoft PowerPoint to do this. It ended up being about 2 3/4, 3 inches tall, which worked out great. And then I have some scrap asparagus that I'm going to use to layer because it's not a perfect dimension. So I'm just going to layer it and cut to fit. I have a piece of this crocheted trim. I have a red button, and I've already set my button with some homemade baker's twine. And this I've got at Joann's from Favorite Findings Heritage Collection. I have some zip dry. I have some foam adhesive, some Fun Flock in cotton ball white. I have my adhesive, and then I have a variety of Copic markers. I'm using G5, E2, R11, R27, R22, Y26, G17, E18, E000, the colorless blender, and E00. And I'll have these listed on my blog as well, and more details onto the specific coloring. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with just coloring my little elf here, and I'm doing this very simple, not a lot of intricate coloring. And I'm starting off with the G05, and I'm coloring everything that I want green. So there is my base color of the G07. Now I'm going to take my G17 and I'm going to just go around the edges of all the green area. I'm going to take my G07 again, G05, and I'm going to blend that darker green in. So I'm pulling it down from the edges and in towards the center of the shapes. And no real real specific blending style here, other than pulling in the color from around the edges. And then for his shoes, I'm pulling it down and swirling it up. There's the green. There's the edge of my colorless blender around here. Make sure there's no pieces sticking out here. Then I'm going to use a little bit of the R22, and I'm going to keep in hand my E00 because I want to blend the cheeks after. So I'm just adding a little touch of this R22 to his cheeks, taking that E00 and blending that pink out from where I touched it. That's where I'm going to start first. Blending it out using some swirls, some feathering. I'm going to make sure I get his ears colored, his head, all in here. There, very quick. Pull. There we go. Pull it out, round it out a little bit. Then I'm going to use my E02 and my E000. I'm going to take my E02 and I'm just going to edge where I want my shadow. So underneath the brim of his hat, along the base of his ears. Just like that. And then I'm going to do under his neck here. And I'm going to take my E000 and I'm going to feather that out from those edges into his face. So it blends it, makes it a little more smooth. Just like that. And then up from his neck. I'm not doing too much of that color. I'll turn him upright for you. There we go. Now I'm going to use some of the E18. I'm going to color the bells on his little shoes here. I'm going to use the Y26. I'm going to color the word joy. That. Then I have my R27. And I'm going to use that to color the ribbon. Then I'm going to use that E05 again, G05, to color his mittens. There. So, then I'm going to use my colorless blender, make sure there's nothing outside the lines, it doesn't look too bad. There we go. So now what I'm going to do is use that strip of spare asparagus. I'm going to adhere him to it. I'm using my glue glider here, Permatac. Put on there. I'm going to make sure he's centered towards this one edge here. And I'm going to pull it in. Then I'm going to use my scissors. I'm going to snip right across the top here. Get rid of that extra. There we go. Like that. I'm going to put him aside so I can start assembling the next parts. So I have my pattern paper here. And what I'm going to do is run adhesive all around the back side. Put that out of the way. So I'm going to run my adhesive all around. You want to make sure you have a really good adhesive for this part where the crochet lace is very thick. You want it to stay. So I'm going to use my Permatac and some regular old Scotch tape. So I have my lace here, and I'm just going to put it about 1/2 inch in from the edge and wrap it to the back. I'm going to do that to both ends here, just wrapping it to the back. I'm going to make sure it's pulled tight so it doesn't come loose. Just like that. And I'm going to secure it with a little bit of Scotch tape, just to make sure that it stays in place. That's both ends. This way it also helps it keep it from fraying. You don't want it to fray and come out. I'm going to add extra adhesive over that area, so that way I know it's going to stay down. And I'm going to adhere it to its coordinating piece of the asparagus cardstock. I'm going to just center that. There. Just like that. So as you can see, there's my lace, very pretty and decorative. What I'm going to do next is adhere this whole panel to my card base. Again, I'm going to use some pretty liberal amount of adhesive here, all the way around, a little extra right around where that lace is. Then I'm going to line it up and put it so that my lace is towards the fold. Line that up. There we go, and press it into place. Next, I'm going to take my other 2 layers here and I'm going to adhere these together. Center that. Next, I'm going to use some of my homemade baker's twine, and what I did is I took some of the really thin crochet thread and wrapped it around a popsicle stick and then used permanent marker, or you could use your Copic marker, and I drew lines on each side, and then when it comes out it looks like a baker's twine. So I'm going to take a length of that and I'm going to secure it to the back with some Scotch tape about 1/4 inch or so from the left edge. So I'm going to secure that to the back. I'm going to wrap it once, twice, snip off my extra, make sure they're together, and I'm going to secure that to the back. Just like that. Okay. Now that I have that done, I'm going to take my little image and I'm going to adhere him to this panel. I'm going to run adhesive on the back here. I'm going to center it up and down and put him right against that little baker's twine piece. So he sits just like that, right on that baker's line. Now I'm going to put some dimensional adhesive onto the back side of this panel. And I'm using a pretty thin amount. I'm not using like really thick. So I'm gonna put that all the way around the edge here. Just like so. And I'm going to adhere this to my card front. I'll bring that right in here. And what I'm going to do is line it up so it sits about halfway over the lace and centered top and bottom. Just like so. So you see a really decorative piece of the lace sticking out. Now what I'm going to do is get a scrap piece of paper here that I've folded in half. Got my zip dry, some Q-tips, and my fun flock. I'm going to zoom in so hopefully you can see this very well. Okay, I'm going to use some of my zip dry here on Q-tip. And I'm going to dab it where I want my fun flock. So on this hat here, I'm going to dump that fun flock right on because this stuff does dry very quick but has a very strong hold. Okay, I'm going to come down to his ruffle on his hat here. Just kind of brush that along. Dump some more fun flock on that. I'm going to pat those into place before I move on to the last one here. There we go. And get a little more zip dry. I'm going to do his ruffle right here on his collar. And dump on some more fun flock. There we go. So I'm going to pat those and move those all into place very gently. Will add some nice little texture. I'm going to tap off my extra. And there's his little puffy, fun-flocked, textured hat and other pieces of his wardrobe. I'm going to quickly just scoop that away. And make sure my zip dry is covered. I'm going to zoom out here. Okay, then I'm going to use my button and some of my baker's twine, and I tied a little bow inside the button. I'm going to use some Zots. I'm just going to pick up one of those Zots. Using the button, just like so, and I'm going to put it right here in the corner, just like that. And there you have it, a very cute and simple elf card, perfect for this holiday season. And thank you for joining me on this episode of BlueButterflyCreations.blogspot.com.